Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, we are going to solve another psychology's past paper. This is paper 2 from October-November 2023 and the paper's component is 1-2 and it is for 1 hour 30 minutes. Also to mention, all of the revenue collected by making these past papers video is going to be directed to Palestine. So I hope you guys support our cause by sharing and subscribing to our channel. Let's begin with the paper. So the first question says that from this study by Pepperberg, Parrot Learning, state the aim of the study, and it is for 1 mark. So you just simply have to state any one aim of the study. So I can write that it was to test whether a parrot could understand the concept of same and different. So this is a whole full aim. You're going to get 1 mark to mention the whole aim. You can also write that it was to test whether a parrot could learn the concept of shape, color and matter. That is also something you can write. It was a very definitive question. And then part B says explain why it was necessary to present the parrot with questions in a random order. So you need to explain it. So you are going to get 1 mark for a generic idea, for example, for writing to avoid the bias, and you need to link it with some kind of details to get the second mark. So let's say I can write that Alex may have given the wrong answer because he was bored at the end. If all one type of questions, for example, all questions related to the matter where at the end he could do badly on these because he was bored. So it was necessary to randomize the order of the questions. For example, first the researcher asked him any question related to matter, and then shape, and then color, and then again shape, matter, color. So it was important to ask the questions in a random order. And then question number 2 says explain the importance of ethical guidelines of anesthesia, analgesia and euthanasia in relation to the use of animals in research. So it is from the ethical guidelines related to animals. So you need to tell, it is for 3 marks, so you will get 1 mark for each relevant point. So let's say you can write that they help to reduce animal sufferings and make sure that they are safe. For example, after an operation, as anesthesia reduces pain, euthanasia prevents endurance of suffering or endurance of pain, and if the animal is injured badly, they should be killed. This was one of the ethical guidelines. And then the next question says participants in the study by Laney et al. Completed the restaurant questionnaire, which was formatted to look like a menu. Describe the restaurant questionnaire. You need to describe it, so you need to write any 2 points because you are going to get 1 mark for each relevant point. So let's say you can write that it had 5 different categories and they had They were based on imagining that the participants were out for a special dinner. You can also write that they had 32 different dishes and they had ratings from 1 to 8. 1 was definitely no and 8 was definitely yes. And then its part B says, explain why it was important that the research questionnaire looked like a menu. So it needed to look like a very real menu. Why was it important? To make it look more realistic. So that the results can be more valid. And then question number 4 says, the study by Yamamoto et al. Used a repeated measures experimental design. Outline what is meant by a repeated measures design. Include an example from the study by Yamamoto et al. In your answer. So you are going to get 1 mark for telling what is meant by the repeated measures design, and the second mark is for giving the example to linking repeated measures design with the study of Yamamoto et al. This, we can write that this is where all participants do all the levels of the independent variable. This is what is meant by the repeated measures design, and then you have to link it with the study. So in Yamamoto et al., each chimpanzee did both the conditions, which were the can see and the cannot see condition. So this is how you are linking the definition with the study by Yamamoto et al. And then we have its part B, which says, explain one advantage of using a repeated measures design for this study compared to using an independent measures design. So you need to suggest an advantage of using repeated measures design, and then you have to compare it with independent measures design. So you can write that for this study, okay? So you can write that Yamamoto et al. Had young and old chimpanzees, and age might affect helpfulness. So if they were in different groups, which is what happens when you go for the independent measures design, participants are in different groups, so participate in different groups. So if they were in different groups, this would affect the dependent variable, because we wouldn't know that if the differences in the results are due to the change in independent variable or due to the age. So that is why it was important that all of the chimpanzees were in both the groups. In a study that measures two variables, fifth question says, in a study that measures two variables, a relationship between the variable was found. As one variable increased, the other decreased. Name this relationship. So we know that when there is a relationship or a link found between two variables, and it is the variables are known as two measured variables instead of independent and dependent, then that is a correlation. And they are saying that when one variable increases, the other decreases. So both of them are inversely related. So this is a negative relationship. Negative correlation. If you're just writing negative or you're just writing relation or anything like that, so you're not going to get a mark. You don't have to write relation, you have to write correlation. So it is a negative correlation. And then part B says, suggest two variables from any core studies that show this relationship. So you need to recall all the studies in which there were negative correlations found. So you can talk about Baron-Cohen, where a negative correlation was found between AQ test and the eyes test score. So you need to mention both the variables. One was the AQ test score and the other one was the eyes test score. So these two are the variables from one core study, which is Baden-Cohen. And then question number 6 is describe natural experiments and naturalistic observations using any examples. So for this one we can write, we also need to explain what natural experiments and naturalistic observations are, and then while defining them we need to give examples for that, right? So we can say that natural experiments are the ones in which independent variable occurs naturally, or you can also use the word spontaneously, and there is a measured dependent variable available, and then the researcher has to use the existing differences in variables rather than deliberately changing them. So they are naturally there. And you can use the example of maybe Pilyavin, where he used victims but they waited for situations needing the help on subway. So they could not basically manipulate the condition of helping. The situation which needed help was occurring by itself spontaneously. And the second one is naturalistic observation. So for that you can write naturalistic observations are the ones where participants are observed in their natural environment without the interference of the researcher. There are no controls and the setting is normal. For example, in Dement and Kleitman, participants' eye movements were initially observed without interrupting the dreaming. So this is the whole answer for a 6 mark. Then we have question number 7, which says James is conducting an interview to investigate topics that could influence anger and euphoria. He has already written his question about anger. James needs to write questions which cover 3 topics that could increase euphoria. These topics are sports or games, film or music, and the natural world, example animals and plants, being outside, or good weather. Suggest one close question and one open question that James could use to investigate one of his 3 topics about euphoria. Do not use a rating scale in your answer. Okay, so for a closed question we cannot use a Likert type or a rating scale. So it can be anything, like anything in your mind. It is a very general question. So for example, closed question can be if it's also related to sports and games, so you can write that does playing football makes you euphoric? Okay, makes you euphoric, and then you can write either yes or a no. And an open question for this can be, when you are playing a game, explain what emotions do you experience. And then the question says, James has chosen to conduct a semi-structured interview. Explain two strengths of a semi-structured interview. It is for 4 marks, so you are going to get 2 marks per suggestion, per explanation, for each strength. So you can write that in a semi-structured interview, many questions are consistent between participants, which makes the data reliable and the study more replicable. Because what happens in a semi-structured interview is that half of the questions are pre-planned and you are asking the same questions to each participant, and half of the questions are unplanned. You change your questions according to the personality and the situation created by the interviewee. So what happens is many of the questions are consistent between the participants, which makes the data reliable and the study more replicable, because another person can ask the same questions as they are same throughout the study. And the second one can be, also for this you can also mention for further explanation, this was the strength, and for further detail you can write that, so James is sure that each participant's data will be comparable to other participants, so it is easier to compare and analyze as well. Second one can be that James can ask each participant both fixed and the new questions, so they are tailored to individual's personality as well, so he can explore the particular sports, film, or music with different aspects according to each person's personality. So this is also one of the strengths. And then part C says, James was planning to use opportunity sampling to obtain participants from his university, but he decided random sampling would be better. Explain how James could use random sampling to obtain participants from his university. So you just need to mention how random sampling, you just need to recall how random sampling is done, and just link it with James' study to write the answer. And just for 2 marks, so you will get 1 mark for explanation, 1 mark for linking it with James' study. So you can write that he can start with a numbered list of everyone in the population and then select using a random number. he has the list and then he is just randomly selecting all of the numbers, or maybe he can like write the names of people on the chits and put them in a hat and then shuffle it and then take out every second chit to make sure that this every second person is being chosen in the study. And then you have to explain one advantage for James of using random sampling compared to using opportunity sampling. So again, a comparing question. Here you can write that it is likely to be more representative and generalized, so there are likely to be people with a range of anger levels, range of anger or euphoria levels, so this is more representative, but this wouldn't be possible in opportunity sampling. And then question number 8 says, Olive and Dernes are planning a questionnaire to use in their study which aims to investigate forgetting in old people. Olive thinks that they should include some irrelevant questions so that the participants are less likely to guess the aim of the study. Dernes thinks this is unethical. Explain why Olive's plan to include irrelevant questions would be useful. So these are basically what Olive is trying to do, is have filler questions in his study. And why are filler questions important? To reduce the demand characteristics so that they will not try harder than normal to remember. This is a full mark answer. And then explain why Dernis thinks that Olive's plan would be unethical, because it is including deception. So the old people would believe all the questions were part of the study, so it would mean that they could not give fully informed consent and they will be deceived. And deception is one of the ethical guidelines that should not be broken in a study. And then the question says, Olive and Dernis want to be able to generalize their findings to all old people. Suggest one variable that would affect memory in old people other than age. So other than age, there are multiple factors. So for example, you can write that if they live alone or not, because if someone is feeling lonely, they might tend to forget more because they become depressive. You can also write that how active they are, what kind of medication they are taking, what kind of health issues they are suffering from, because old people tend to be suffering from different health issues. And the in part 2 says, explain why the variable you suggested in B1 could affect memory in old people. So I just gave the explanation for that as well, that people who live alone have to remember more for themselves, so it can make their memory better. Or you can write it in a negative way, just like I told, that they are more depressive, they feel lonely, so it might affect their brain or their cognitions and they might not be able to remember properly. But over here I'm writing it in a positive way, that people who live alone have to remember more for themselves, making their memory better because they have practice of remembering a lot of things. Question number 9 says, Gagan has collected data about personality characteristics. 2 of the questions he asked were personality question. Which word best describes your personality? Angry, confident, kind, worried. And a shyness question, which was that how shy do you feel in new situations on a scale of 0 to 5? 0, not at all, and 5, very shy. Name the most appropriate measure of central tendency to use with the data from each question. So in personality question, he was asking them a closed multiple choice question, which included 4 options and they were like the word answers. So over here we can write mode, because you can simply see that which word is mostly repeated. Mode is the most repeated value, and or most repeated answer. And for this Chinese question you can write median, because it is the middle value. And you can also write mean, because you can get the average out of all the scores as well. And then it says name the most appropriate type of graph for Gauguin to use to display the results from the personality question. So in personality question we were taking mode. So out of mode, the best type of graph we can make is the bar graph, because you can simply type that on y-axis you can have all of the options: angry, confident, kind, and worried. Sorry, you can have the scores, and then on the x-axis you can have angry, confident, kind, and worried, and then just simply write that which one was most repeated. Part C says, when Gauguin analyzes the data for the shyness question, he finds that the scores are normally distributed. Sketch a graph using the axis below to show the pattern of Gauguin's data from the shyness question. You must label the axis. So for this, if we are labeling, so our shyness scale should be on the x-axis, because it is our independent variable, and our frequency will be on the y-axis. Also, the question says that he finds that the scores are normally distributed. So for a normally distributed scale, first we obviously need to like mention the scale 1, 2, it was 3, 4, and 5. And from the first chapter, the research methods, we know that when the data is fairly distributed, so what happens is something like this is achieved, because it is fairly distributed. This is the middle value, and then it is fairly distributed from both the sides. Now question number 10 says, Sarah wants to test whether people with a higher intelligence quotient IQ are better at concentrating. She will conduct a laboratory experiment and already has a test for measuring the IQ of the participants. Describe how Sarah can conduct a laboratory experiment to test whether people with a higher IQ are better at concentrating than people with a lower IQ. So by now we know that there are a few questions which are important for designing the study question, which are what, why, how, which is the whole procedure, who, which is the sample, and where, which can also be part of the sample. So if I'm writing the points, so you guys obviously have to write a whole proper answer. I'm just writing the points, that if she is to conduct a laboratory experiment, so and she already has an IQ test prepared, okay, she has it ready with her. So what we can do is, for a laboratory experiment, there are going to be IVs and DVs. So IV is the intelligence, and DV is your dependent variable, is your concentration level. For this, what she can do is, first of all, to recruit her sample, she can have volunteer sampling, maybe from a university, okay. And if we are talking about volunteer sampling, we also need to mention some kind of incentive. So we can say that she gives extra credit to each student who participates. And in her study, let's say she is taking a sample of 50 people, which is fairly distributed for the gender. For example, 25 males and 25 females. And let's say the study is being conducted in the university itself. Okay, and she has the test already ready. So what she can do is, every student is first tested by the IQ test she already has. Their scores are recorded. And then what she can do is, for measuring their concentration, she can ask them to watch a video which includes complex scenes and words. Okay, so that it can be basically something which demands more of the concentration, complex scenes and words. And since we have used laboratory experiment, it is important to note that lab experiments do contain controls, right, to avoid the extraneous variable. So for that, what we can do is, she asked people outside the class to not make noise which can impact the concentration, and she has a moderate temperature in the room, and the voice of the video is clear and monotonous. Okay, and all of the people should be in the same room while watching the video. So these are the controls she can use to avoid any kind of extraneous variable, and to make sure that it is the level of IQ, it is the independent variable alone which can impact the dependent variable, which is the concentration, and no other extra variables such as noise outside the class, or temperature issues, or voice issues, anything like that could affect her dependent variable. And then what she can do is, she can then take a small quiz in which she can ask questions like questions such as what happened in a particular scene, or she can ask them to recall at least 10 complex words from the video. So this can be their test. And after this, she can record the scores of the post video quiz and compare it with the IQ test quiz. So that is how she can record the scores and compare them to see if the people who had higher IQ score were also able to score high in the post-test quiz. And then you have to identify one practical weakness or limitation with the procedure you have described in your answer to part A, and suggest how your study might be done differently to overcome the problem. And you do not need to refer to ethics or sampling in your answer. So for this, again, go through your answer, look at it, and then pick out any weakness. So let's say from this we can see that she used videos, right? So maybe there is a problem that some people might find it difficult to concentrate on videos due to participant variable, because people have different characteristics, right? So they might find it difficult to concentrate on videos due to their own personality trait, and they might prefer and are good at concentrating while reading. Asking them to watch videos only might not give accurate and valid results. Because there might be a lot of people who are good at who have higher IQ levels and they are good at concentrating, but the only thing is that they find it hard to grasp information from the videos, but they do perform better while reading. So what can be done is she can use both a video task and a reading task to test the people. So this is how she can overcome her problem. So this is it for this paper. I hope everything was clear to you guys.